Hi everyone, I'm Ryan, ADHD dude. I'm here with one of my favorite people in the world, Ben. Ben is alumni of my school year programs and trip camp, and today we're gonna talk about his life. So Ben, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you want to introduce yourself and tell us how old you are and what you do for a living?
Sure, I'm really excited to be here. So my name is Ben. I'm 19 years old, and right now my occupation, I'm a college student at Penn State University. We are to all the alumni who may be listening. And in my spare time, I do some sports broadcasting on the side as well. I'm going to be a broadcast journalism major, so I'll go around and broadcast some of the local games out in my area.
And what year are you going into at Penn State?
So I just finished my freshman year, so I'll be heading into my sophomore year at Penn State main campus.
Excellent. Do you want to describe to us how your brain works?
Sure. The thing is, I'm still trying to learn myself how my brain works. But what I know so far is that I've had an autism diagnosis since I was 3 years old. Some of the things that affect how my brain works is I have slow processing speed. So, for example, if you say an instruction, like if you put a math problem on the board, it may take me a couple times to really go, aha, and just click it like that. Even with like a question, just a straight up question, you may have to ask it once or twice. And then I do struggle with some emotional regulation stuff like anger, anxiety, and managing to keep my emotions not too high and not too low.
Okay. I want to ask you, when you when you meet people or when you met people at school this year, did you say to them, "Hi, I'm Ben, I have Asperger's," or do you just kind of leave that part out?
So the good thing is, let's just start out. My roommate I've known for like 3 years now, and he's a really good friend of mine, which was a really good choice that I made because he understands how I work. He already knew about the diagnosis, and he helped me bring in and make friends because when he brought people to the dorm to meet them and hang out with them, I would hang out with them too. So I made new friends, and when I became comfortable enough, I told them my diagnosis, but I didn't tell them early. If they could figure it out, I'm impressed by them, but I sort of want them to think of me as I don't like to use the word neurotypical, but a typical person first. And then once I present it, they'll be like, oh, I didn't know, but thank you for telling me. Then they could better help me be in the best situation possible.
Okay. So is it fair to say that you don't want to make, Asperger's part of kind of your identity where it's the first thing people know about you?
No, I always use the term my diagnosis is not my identity. My character is my identity. I want them to see my character first before they get my diagnosis because um it's not like I'm different or anything. I have the same brain as the next human next to me. My brain just works differently. It's not different as like a whole. And I just don't want to be thought of as the autistic kid, stuff like that. I just want to be thought of as Ben.
So did you come up with that yourself, saying that, it's not my identity? I want to be known for my character, not my diagnosis?
I did come up with that myself.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of videos about people making themselves their diagnosis on TikTok. Like I've seen a lot of autistic creators try to make autism their identity to promote it and show it and whatever. And I like it to an extent, but you can't make it your whole personality, your whole identity. You have to have other things to make you who you are. And I firmly believe that your character is your identity and how you treat people is what makes you your character, not your diagnosis.
Okay. So I want to ask you something. I would have just assumed, to be honest, that you never would have watched any kind of autism stuff on TikTok solely because I would think it's just not interesting to you. How did that come about that you started watching some of that?
Well, so partly is just because of the algorithm. That's how it works. They brought videos onto my page and I watched more because they did kind of interest me, and seeing how my brain compares to other people did fascinate me a little bit. But I've been watching these types of videos since I was a kid. My mom, for a background, was president of two different autism support groups, and she's taught me from a young age how my brain works through videos and through teachings and through resources. So it already came naturally to me that these videos not fascinated me because they can be kind of boring, but I'm used to watching them.
Okay. All right. So I want to backtrack a little bit to when I first met you when you were about 8. And I met you because myself and your mom were on the board of an Asperger's organization in Philly, the support group you mentioned. That's no longer in existence, but that's how I met your mom and that's how I met you. Can you talk a little bit about elementary school? What was good about it? What was difficult about it?
Yeah. So I think there was a lot of good things about it where I did have a lot of friends in my elementary school. Um, I had a great support system around me and my parents and my family. Some of the bad things, though, is that my mom definitely did work a lot on this support group and didn't devote as much time to helping me as I needed, but she did everything that she could. She did a great job with me, but definitely I just remember her being in the office 24/7, helping a lot of other families with their kids as well and getting the event set up. And I sort of felt upset at that because, I wanted her to devote her time to me as well because I'm her kid. And then the other thing that I remember very distinctly about elementary school is I had something called a paraprofessional, which is abundant in a lot of schools. And I wasn't a fan of that because a lot of kids would treat me differently than I would want them to treat me. It's almost like a repellent. It was almost a kid repellent because they saw the paraprofessional with me and they're like, "Oh, something must be wrong with the kid. So we're gonna go to other kids and leave this one be."
So was that somebody who was just with you during the day?
Yeah, someone who's just with me, so they would be in the classroom 24/7. If I needed to take a walk to clear my mind, they would have to go with me. And to for me, that was a little bit embarrassing because I didn't think I needed it. I can understand why other kids in other situations could need it, but I felt like I could do okay on my own and making friends naturally because a lot of the times the paraprofessional would try to make friends for me and that just wouldn't work because it's almost robotic and adults make friends differently than kids make friends.
Right. So when I met your mom, that was a school year where things started falling apart a little bit. I don't remember what grade that was. Maybe it was third grade. Does that sound right?
Third or fourth around
Okay.
that time,
All
probably.
right. So what I remember, and you tell me because obviously you have a better memory of this than I do. What I remember is, it was really at school where you were struggling, not at home so much. Is that how you remember it?
I'm gonna be honest. I've pushed a lot of this stuff out, but yeah, I do remember school being a struggle due to certain factors, just like social anxiety, emotional regulation, etc.
Okay. And then what grade did you start at the private school you went to that I used to work at before you got there?
So I left for the private school in the middle of third grade. I remember it because my class actually did something really nice for me. They had a send off party for me. They had a send off surprise party, and that was the middle of third grade. I stayed there. I hopped between two private schools until the end of sixth grade.
So when you say you hop between two private schools till the end of sixth grade, I remember you being at the first one, and
Yeah.
then
So
after that, you then went to the other one that I also worked at when you
yeah.
were not there. You kind of followed me. So yeah, you didn't really hop back and forth, right? You went from one to the other.
Yeah, I went from one to the other. So I stayed in a I'm hoping I'm correct about this. I stayed my whole fourth grade year and then left the one private school. And then I started at the other private school my fifth grade year and then
Right.
stayed until the end of my sixth grade year.
Right. So let me just explain to everybody. So the first school Ben went to is a private school. It's primarily for kids with higher verbal autism spectrum diagnoses, so Asperger's, autism, and there's also kids with behavior challenges there as well. So that's the first school he went to, and then from there, Ben went to a school that is a private college preparatory school for kids with learning differences. Correct?
That is absolutely correct. You nailed it on
Considering
the
I
head.
worked at both of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
All right. So thinking back to elementary school, what do you remember your parents doing that you didn't really like, but when you look back now, you can think to yourself, okay, that was helpful or I needed that?
So my parents from a young age really drilled social skills into my head because social skills for them was the number one priority. That's how I made friends, and that's how you interact with people in the real world. So they taught me not necessarily how my specific brain works, but how brains like me worked and strategies to help me make friends and have a good social understanding of people. And that was very helpful because looking back in middle school and high school, it's those unstructured social situations that really made me friends and really made me successful. But at the time, it was really boring. I mean, watching the videos and reading the books, there's so many other things I could have done. Like I could have been relaxing, playing video games, whatever, do whatever a kid wants to do. But for them to take the time and really drill this into my head so I can be as socially aware and socially, I don't know the word to say it, socially successful as possible, that meant a lot to me.
Is it fair to say that in elementary school you struggled a lot socially?
Yeah, I struggled more than other people. If I didn't have the background that my mom had and the resources that my mom had, I would be way less successful than I am now. I probably wouldn't have moved as far from elementary school as I would have.
Do you remember what you struggled with socially in elementary school? I do, but I would rather hear it from you.
Wow, you're really making me think here. I I completely forget. I've moved on since then, but if you want to tell the audience, I okay with it.
Well, I want to ask you, and then you tell me if you agree or not. How about that?
Um, okay, yeah, then
All
that
right.
sounds fair.
So I remember you had very low frustration tolerance for other kids. You would get annoyed with other kids very easily and would often yell at them if they weren't doing what you wanted them to do, if they were annoying you. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might have been a little bit smothering, and then when kids didn't like that, you might have felt kind of rejected and then would get mad at them.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff, you're right, revolved around me getting mad at other kids for either not meeting a social expectation that I had for them, or really that I didn't uphold the social expectation that they had for me, and I got frustrated and flustered and didn't really know what to do. Because a lot of what my anger revolves around is getting flustered. Like if I'm in an anxiety that something's not going to work out or I'm going to be in trouble for something, I'll get flustered and lash out at people, even though they do not deserve it at all, because that's just how my brain works. And I'm still trying to work on to this day.
Okay. Would you say you've come a very long way with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've become it's become to the point where it's not noticeable that I struggle with these things. I may have a lash out every once in a while, but I take ownership of it. I take accountability, and I'll say I'm sorry and I'm going to work on it in the future. And we move on and we continue our relationship.
Right. And that's very commendable because I mean, I remember what you were like 11 years ago. And
I did not take accountability at all. So
well,
that's a big part of it.
I'm saying it's amazing how far you've come socially, just in your own awareness of yourself, but also of other people. You know,
I appreciate it, Ryan. I
definitely.
appreciate it.
Um, what advice would you give to parents of elementary schoolers?
So this is a tough question, and though some may disagree with me on this, but make sure whatever school situation you're in, public or private, um, make sure the school is helping your child at an early age. Give them the tools to be successful in unstructured social situations. Because as I hinted to earlier, that it's the unstructured social situations where you have your biggest chance for social success, how you make friends, etc. But when you're out in the unstructured social situations, have the school come back and let the child utilize the skills that you taught them, because the child can put two and two together. Like that's not a problem for them. And if it doesn't work out, pivot and say, okay, what could you have done better next time to make sure, the interaction was less weird, or it becomes better next time? Because the only way that kids are going to make true friends is if they do it themselves in unstructured situations instead of adults doing it for them.
Okay. What advice would you give parents about, what they should or shouldn't be doing at home with their kids, with their elementary school?
That's another tough one. So I think that um again, your diagnosis is not you. There's no excuse for bad behavior. There's no excuse for failing to meet basic expectations at home. You need to set clear expectations with your kids, and if things don't work, pivot, because elementary school is a time for you, both you and your kid, learning about that particular child. You know, and making changes now and experimenting with things that may work or may not work um, will put you in middle school and high school in a better successful position instead of just trying to figure it out last minute. Like, one thing my mom really did well is that she asked for help. I think asking for help was the biggest thing she did for me as a parent, because even with her extensive knowledge and background, she still needed to use her resources. She still needed to try things out to make sure that I was as successful, not as part of me, that I could be, and not trying to panic and figure it out herself.
Okay. Can I share two things that I think your mom did that was very helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay. One, she didn't let you get out of things you didn't want to do. If you were anxious about things, she didn't let you avoid them because you were anxious about them. You agree?
Yeah, and you're reminding me that my dad had a rule for me as a kid. It's okay if you're not successful at something. It is not okay to not try. I think trying builds problem-solving skills. It helps develop resilience. It helps develop perseverance, which you're going to need in the real world. And you really need to teach kids that early, that it's okay if you mess up. It's okay if you fail, but you need to try and not avoid things because you have a diagnosis. Because again, your brain works differently, but you're not different.
I have to tell you, when I'm talking to you right now, like, it's in a way, I'm like, I can't believe I'm having this conversation with him, because like, when I think back to when you were like 11 or 12 or 13, like, I never would have pictured you would be saying any of this. It's kind of incredible, you know that?
I really appreciate it. And you've
It's true.
helped me a long way. I mean, we've had a lot of years together. We've had a lot of struggles, but I'm happy that I am where I am at now. I'm happy where you are, where you are at now. You're doing pretty good yourself. So
You're you're
happy
doing
that
pretty good yourself.
I'm happy that we're in this moment and we're talking and having a pretty good conversation.
Me too. One more question I want to ask you.
Yeah.
So this is not something you would know about because it's not something you would pay attention to, but there's a big thing happening on parenting social media right now, particularly with social media that's geared for parents of kids with ADHD or autism. And it's this thing, we'll call it, it has a name, it's called low demand parenting. So the idea behind it is, don't make your kids do anything. Give them a choice about everything. If they want to eat with an iPad in front of their face, watching, whatever show during meals, you let them do that. And nothing, you don't make any demands of them. You give them choices for everything. I want to know how you think that would have affected you if your mom parented you that way when you were younger.
Yeah, just hearing that just takes me by a big surprise to me that parents would do that. My mom, there was clearly times where the answer would be no. And I would have to accept that the answer is no, because in the real world, there is going to be things that you can't control. One of the In my local high school football, we have a pyramid, and one of the things is control what you can control. But there's certain things that you cannot control as a person, and refusing to have no as an answer and just letting your kids do whatever they want, that's just going to put them in a bad position, because they're going to lash out more when things don't go their way, because things aren't going to go your way all the time. Unless this world would be perfect if things went my way all the time. But um, you as parents need to have certain expectations, certain ground rules. There's a line that needs to be set at your house. And, the kids just need to hear the word no, because if they don't, they're not going to be successful in the real world. They're going to lash out and they're going to get themselves into bigger trouble than they already are in now.
You think kids need to have demands placed on them, whatever it might be, like helping around the house, things like that?
Yeah, because how are you going to figure it out when you're in the real world? One of the things my mom never taught me to do, which I wish she taught me to do, was do my own laundry. I had to figure that out way from scratch when I was in college, and that was hard. But for other things, she had demands and expectations about them. And then when I moved out of the house, I knew how to meet those expectations. When you don't set those expectations clearly, it just flusters the kid. Like when he or she moves out of the house, they won't know what to do with themselves because of it.
And would you also say about, what I said about that when you were anxious about something that your parents didn't let you avoid it, would you say that that's accurate and that was probably helpful? Or do you think that they should have let you avoid things that made you anxious?
I reiterate to the fact that it's okay to be anxious. It's okay to mess up and fail, but you need to try and persevere. That's the one rule that my dad had in my house. And there was a point this school year where I could have used my diagnosis as a bailout. I thought about playing the card. I did. I'm human. I'm not perfect. But I then remembered that I had to persevere. I had to try, because that was the expectation that my dad and my mom set me. Because it's okay if I wasn't a straight A student. It's okay if I wasn't a straight B student. All they wanted me to do was try my best, and that was okay for them.
So I hope everyone watching this, you can see why Ben is one of my favorite people in the world, because not only is he inspirational, but to see the growth in him over the past 11 years, I mean, it kind of leaves me speechless. It really does. And I'll be the first to admit, I would never have imagined that you are where you are right now, that you could have gotten to where you are right now. So I fully own that I underestimated.
Yeah, I love proving people wrong. That's what I love doing the most. But no, due to my family pushing me, due to the resources that were provided to me by my family, the lessons that were taught, I'm happy to be where I am today.
Awesome. Will you come back and talk to us about the middle school years?
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, very cool. Thank you so much for talking with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yep, happy to be here.
All right. Yeah, that, by the way, that was perfect.
It was good.
Oh my God, it was perfect.
Yes.
I didn't tell you to stop it all and re-say anything.
Oh, that's good. I was just worried that you were gonna hate everything that I said.
Oh my God, no, that was like I thought I was gonna have to stop a few times and say rephrase that because it didn't make sense. That was like I'm barely gonna have to edit this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you're awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, let me do the introduction again. All right.